season, so I asked them if they would come forward now. And after afternoon tea, approximately, we're going to break for afternoon tea around 3. There's a presentation from Black Heron that will be made at that time. That's just to work with their timetable and able to get here. So straight after afternoon tea, we'll hear from you. But firstly, I welcome both Leanne and is it Sandy? Thank you. It's great to have you with us. So you've got up to 10 minutes and there may be some questions that come up. Thank you and welcome. If you could just use the, thank you very much, microphone. Sorry, I'm at the back end of a flu, so my voice is not as good as it could be. Thank you.
Apologies, we had some technical difficulties with our printer, so we've not been able to print and pack out today, but we'll email the documentation through.
Thank you. If you could just use your mic, just press the button. That's right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Ina rangatira, ina tohonga o tumanaki, tēnā koutou. Uri noa, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Ko Leonelis toka ingoa, he kaimahi ahu mō te papa atawhai. So kia ora, I'm Leanne, I'm the Operations Manager for the North Canterbury District of DOC.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Sandy Yong toko ingoa, ke te papa atawhai aho e mahi ana. I'm Sandy Yong, I'm the Department of Conservation Senior Biodiversity Ranger.
So today we'd just like to talk to you about a proposal to close the riverbed, the Ashley Rakahuri riverbed that comes under the parcel of Department of Public Conservation land, so the upper part.
Braided rivers are a special ecosystem. They're globally rare. They're characterised by an ever-changing environment with a network of river channels. Nearly 64% of New Zealand's braided rivers lie in Canterbury. Due to extensive development, braided rivers are one of our last strongholds of native biodiversity on the Canterbury Plains. The dynamic habitat provided by braided rivers is home to a variety of species from plants, birds, reptiles, and invertebrates. Many of these species have evolved specifically to live on braided rivers alone. An example of this is the wrybill with its bent bill, which has been evolved to be able to feed underneath rocks. Canterbury braided rivers support 85 species of birds. Many of these are endemic and threatened. On the screen are some of the species that we'll find on the Ashley River. Their natural predators were airborne, so these birds have developed to camouflage into their surroundings, particularly with the nests that are laid on the shingle. The chicks and eggs blend well into the gravel around them. This worked very well for them until the arrival of humans and introduced mammalian predators. The Ashley River is an important foothills fed river habitat. The section from the Ashley Gorge to the Okuku confluence in blue there is the section that we're asking for closure. That's a section that's managed by the Department of Conservation. The yellow section from the Okuku confluence to the river mouth is effectively managed by ECAN. The Ashley River Care Group are an important community group who undertake a lot of work, particularly on that yellow section of the river. We're doing a lot of weed control and a lot of species monitoring and predator control as well. Since 2012, ECAN have been blocking the lower section, that's the section in yellow, during the nesting season from vehicles. There's also a bylaw, that's the section in red by the estuary. DOC and ARG have undertaken river surveys, river bird surveys from the Ashley Gorge to the Cuckoo confluence. We've done these in the last couple of years. These are the results from last year's survey, and it shows that that section of the river still is really important habitat for threatened birds.
So nest monitoring undertaken by ARC demonstrates the months where the nesting for the different birds is happening. So you can see on that graph that between September and January is really a key time of year for those birds out on the riverbed. Since 2021, there's been an increase in vehicle use on the Ashley. So in particular, around early December, and that's followed a promotion from a radio station developing Crate Day. And that's sort of got legs of its own now, and there's been a local organised but not sort of formal group that will undertake what they call a river run on the Ashley River on that day each year. And so that's seen up to 200 vehicles on the river in one day. So we've done attempts to educate drivers about the nesting birds and encourage them to avoid the river, but we found that's not been successful, so that's sort of been what we've done over 21, 22 and 23. Last year we worked collaboratively with ARG, with ECAN, the Waimakariri District Council and the police to do advocacy, and the North Canterbury News did some media stories around it as well, and we found there was really good public interest in I guess the cause that we're trying to advocate for, which is protecting the nesting birds. The event has a huge impact on the success of the nests. So for chicks and eggs that aren't damaged by vehicles directly, the stones that get dislodged by tyres will damage the eggs, and so that's what's happened in the images on the screen. So there's two separate nests that have had the eggs damaged by flying gravel. And then there's a newly hatched rival chick which was crushed by flying stones from a four-wheel drive, and that's from 2017. So some images are been able to supply us. And then you can see here there's footage of a vehicle going through a black-billed gull colony, so it would have been quite obvious to the driver that there were in fact birds there, but they've sort of proceeded to go ahead anyway. That can cause distress to the adults as well, and they'll abandon the nests, and then the nests won't be able to hatch and fledge into adult chicks for future populations. As well as the nests and the chicks can harm the fledglings as well. So here's some more mature birds that were killed by vehicles, and that was in 2021. And this is a video which usually takes a second to start playing. There we go. So if you've got good eagle eyes, you'll be able to spot some chicks in the foreground on the gravel. It just really clearly shows how hard it is to spot nests and the little ones when you're in a vehicle. We find it challenging when we're specifically looking for them to do nest surveys. They're well camouflaged. So we think it's pretty clear that the attenders of the event demonstrate some antisocial behaviour, and they don't appear to be interested in protecting the other inhabitants of the river. We'll have conversations and they expressed interest in trying to avoid them, but that's not replicated by what we see on the ground at the time. So it's sort of, I think somebody had got out and specifically said, oh, if you want a photo, I'll give you a photo, and decided to move. We also have support from the Ashley Gorge Holiday Park. So they have had issues with vehicles disrupting the enjoyment of their campers. They pose a health and safety risk to people that are trying to recreate in the river around the gorge. And they've had vandalism as well, I think, because often the event comes with alcohol and other substances, and so there's a bit of just general antisocial behaviour that's not positive for other users. And they've been closing vehicle access around the gorge for 18 months now, so they're fully supportive of seeing that extended a bit further along the river.
This slide shows the tracking of some four-wheel drives that occurred after they went through the colony, which are those black tracks, and you can see that They tend to drive all over the place. A lot of the four-wheel drivers, they enjoy the more challenging terrain. And so they have quite a disruptive impact on a colony of birds.
One of the comments that we've had is that we could mark out a route that avoids the nests, but that's challenging because one, nests aren't fluid, so they will move and they'll often be in different spots, so we can't guarantee that's going to be a route that's viable for the whole season. And two, we know that for drivers, but like mountain bikers, they really want the challenge of navigating new terrain and sort of mastering a technique in the vehicle, and so having a planned out road is probably not going to meet that requirement for them.
So vehicle barriers.
You could just perhaps just get to the concluding bit, because we're running a bit over time. We've got quite a bit of business here today, so I think we get the gist of what you're looking for.
Okay, apologies for that.
It's okay.
Yeah, so we'll just summarise to say that what we're wanting to do is to put blocks at access points along the river that the department would manage and put in place and work with the Waimakariri District Council to publicise and provide material out to the community around what we're doing and why. And we'd like that to happen every year between September and the end of January to protect the nesting birds. So kia ora, thank you for the time. And the final important message, is we just want to thank the Ashley Rakahuri River Care Group and Grant Davey for providing images and material from your time on the river.
Thank you. Obviously the river is also, well, there's the responsibility of Environment Canterbury. What work are you doing with ECAN?
Yeah, so
speak to this, because obviously we have a role, but it's not primarily the council's role.
So ECAN have been putting the blocks in place already for about a decade at the lower end, but because that top end is designated as public conservation land, their responsibility, I guess, sort of draws a little bit to a close at the line division where the different land designation kicks in. So we're quite keen to extend the work that ECAN have been doing at the lower end into the upper end.
So what would you like us to do?
So we would like there to be, so under the New Zealand Transport Act, a riverbed is considered a road, and so we'd like the riverbed to be closed as a road by the council. So the tool that we have comes under the Conservation Act, so we can close a piece of public conservation land, but that means that it's closed entirely to all users, and that is not an outcome that we'd like to see. We think most people really respect and appreciate the riverbed. The issue that we've got, particularly for the biodiversity, is with vehicles. So we're asking that the council close the riverbed as a road between those months.
Which months were they in?
So that's September to the end of January.
It's obviously a bit late for this year, but it's something you'd like to have in place, if possible, for next year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. I certainly have some sympathy for what you're raising. Perhaps through our CE, we'd like to request a report from staff on what options we have, what's available to us, including working with Environment Canterbury. I heard you talk at the Rangiora Ashley Community Board you attended recently, so have you been to the other boards as well?
Yes, went to the Oxford Oak board as well.
Perhaps if we could coordinate that with our boards. So, would there be any disagreement with us seeking a report from colleagues here? Yep. Just gives us options.
Yeah,
all right.
Support.
Councillor Williams, a question?
Yeah, wee bit of concern is four-wheel driving is now classed as recreational for a lot of people here, so I can see the problem with the birds and all that. So what areas would you be intending to open, if any, for the recreation people if you close down a great proportion of where they're having their recreational? Are there places where you can actually specifically open up for recreational four-wheel drives in that period of time, because that's their main time? Have you thought about that? And if so, where?
We have thought about it. It's a challenging question because our mandate is to protect the biodiversity first and foremost, and conservation, not to provide, I guess, and it comes above providing recreational opportunities, and so that's a conflict the department has at the moment in terms of budget constraints. For the nesting birds, I think the areas that they're really drawn to are gravel islands and open gravel locations. So I think there are areas that don't have that, and so that the birds aren't prevalent as nesting on. but I don't consider this appropriate as the Department of Conservation to sort of say this is the sacrificial riverbed or the sacrificial location. There'll be no places that have no values, I guess, that the department's interested in.
Just that you actually stated they had no sympathy for you people, the birds, so what sympathy have you guys got for the four-wheel drivers?
I think that's getting into a debating point we don't need to get into. Councillor Williams, Councillor Redmond.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. How can other recreational users have access to this area? Are there car parks or tracks for pedestrians? Or are you going to close it off to all access effectively?
So it would still be open to horse riders and walkers. It would be at the end of the access roads that there'd be a barrier, so people would be able to drive up to effectively that point and then walk onto the riverbed to recreate, but they just wouldn't have to drive onto the riverbed and up and down the river.
Right, you mentioned horses, so horses don't do damage to the nests.
Well, it gets into that question of what line, where do you want to draw the line, because you also say, dogs and people also pose a threat, but I think the bigger threat is from the vehicles, just in terms of the sheer numbers that we see on the Ashley and the frequency that we see them and the damage that they cause by the stones flicking up, which is less evident with the horses and dogs, who mostly are under control.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. So we just see Joanne's there actually, so she's our riding manager, so between staff, it'd be good if we could work in with Environment Canterbury as well as Doc on what options there are there, Joanne. And when it comes to be reported to council, I'm very happy for you to come and speak to that if you'd like to. And I'm sure I'll open that invitation. I'm sure there'll be others that may well have the view as well, like the River Q group, users that may wish to speak to that. So we'll see in time what options we've got. So thank you very much.
Sure, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. All right. No adjourned business. So we come to our first report, which is 7.1, local water done well. The executive, the deputy mayor and myself, we must have been coordinating our address today. Thank you, Chief.
The purpose of this report is to present the Three Waters Reform Programme, local water done well. It's got three components that are outlined in the report, well, four actually, and it's to just formalise that we're doing that work jointly with Kaikoura, Hurunui and ourselves to get to the program which identifies in the first instance the financial modelling, which we would then bring back for a workshop with council. Just to note that the raw assent was given to the bill yesterday, so we have 1 year to present the water services delivery plan to the government. The government will review that plan. It can actually decline it and ask us to do it again. There's a number of options that we then have to undertake. The options for the financial modelling is being done in conjunction with those that are permissible under the Act. So it could be a model which lets us stay by ourselves, right through to the trust model, or a CCM home model. The program in there is very broad in 4.10, which provides a broad program of what workshops we undertake. Hopefully a decision paper to council, consultation with the public in March, April. Another decision paper subject to that consultation in May, submission to the government in June. That's a very broad timetable. It could actually, I don't think we'll go any faster, but it could take 2 or 3 months longer. I'm just happy to take any questions.
Questions of Councillor Williams.
Yeah, question the CE for their comms department. I notice it's been in the local media quite often, North Canterbury News, TV, that's a done and dusted deal. and it's not a done and dusted deal, so how do we get that out to the public, that it's not a done and dusted and we're negotiating with all the council, because it doesn't look good when I get a ring on the portfolio for the Three Waters, saying what's happening is done and dusted, and I'm saying, well, I don't know about that. You know?
Unfortunately, that council was taken up incorrectly by the media. The project which was undertaken is a joint one to look at all of the options, which could allow any one of those three councils to stay by ourselves. The initial financial modelling shows some of that, but it's very, very broad. We need to go do more intensive study into that and what would a water services delivery model look like. There's no decision whatsoever made by this council to go as a joint with those two councils. It's purely that we're collaborating to try and reduce cost and look at all the options.
And it's been made clear in the comms that I've put out that there is no decision being made, and it will critically be a decision for our community. And the absolute, let's hear this. So if we need to relook at that, we will. But I've had a look at the communications here, and I think people approach me about it often, and they understand that from the discussions that they raise. Seem to be, well, what they raise, pleased that we're doing that. We're at least getting ahead of the game. A lot of councils are certainly not in the position we're in. We were at least contemplating what options there might be, and it genuinely will be put before the public, and I will very much be, I'm sure we all will want to see what the public have to say on that. Councillor Redmond.
Thank you. Jeff, I just wondered in recommendation B, why is that confined to investigate Huranui and Kaikoura councils rather than to investigate all models, including the status quo, shared services, and hold discussions with Huranui and Kaikoura?
I'm sorry if it's not clear. It says investigate with. It means investigate those models, not investigate a model. It investigates a range of models that will be brought back to each council.
Why don't we just add that wording, a range of models, with the Huranui and District Council? Add that wording.
I think that could be clearer if that's your intention.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I'll move from the chair the recommendation, adding in after the words support staff to continue to investigate, and add in a range of models, and with the Huranui and Kaikoura District Councils and the rest as is. Seconded Councillor Brian. Just in speaking to it, as just mentioned before, we're now on a timeline, as Chief Executive mentioned. We've got a year in which to put forward a water services delivery plan that will critically meet the requirements of the legislation. I'm really proud of the effort that this council has put in, and it's a combined effort this council has put in, especially from our staff, that led to turning around the previous government's policy. There was going to be no choice for communities. We were bound towards an entity-based model that was going to cover the majority of the South Island, and we had no choice. And the government did, towards the end of their tenure, did change that to split the entities up, but it principally still was no choice for our community and council. We led work, we were a minority in that. We brought on board other councils with us. We formed a group called Communities for Local Democracy, which then brought about exactly what this government is now implementing, which is it's a choice for councils and communities. It's not a compulsion. The critical aspect is that the status quo, in terms of as things are presently, aren't an option in the respect that you have to meet a water services plan. It may well be, after all the investigations, we decide that perhaps a joint model isn't the right one for this council. It's absolutely, and for our community, it's totally out there. But we've decided in the early stage have not decided where our position has been. Let's work alongside Hiranui and Kaikoura, and that's been a conscious decision here to see whether there is a joined up way of working together. We have that already now with the, excuse me, finished? So we, with the Ashley side with the Hiranui, and that really is around a shared service model in a lot of ways. Shared service is definitely one of the options that's very firmly being considered, as well as others, including CCO. We have cleared that we've checked with government because there seemed to be quite a lot of, certainly from the Minister's comments and others around CCO, that is certainly may well be a preferred stance of some within government, but it's been made very clear by officials and by checking that this will be a choice for our council and our communities. Also, the timeline that's indicated there, if we choose that that's not correct, my understanding is we can apply to extend that, but we'd have to have good grounds to do so. The timeline that's been mentioned there is ambitious, but with the work that we've got underway now, we're being supported by consultants, and the government is assisting with that cost because we're part of the modelling. We were asked to undertake that modelling work by the government. So we're very pleased that we have that chance to do that work. We're also looking, as part of that, to rerun the numbers on Canterbury, just to understand is the options, you know, do those numbers that were originally done, are they still relevant? Are there options there that are worth considering? Just so that when we do have all that information, we can say to the community, well, we've looked at all these options, and this is, and put that in front of them and say, well, what would you like as a consequence of that? And I genuinely have an open mind there, no fixed opinion, because we've been very clear with the public all the way through this. We will take them on the journey, tell them what we know. We went out to the public and asked them at the very first instance what they thought. We got the largest number of submissions we've ever got on anything. And 97% of our community turned around and said that did not agree with the previous government's proposal, which has informed the whole direction that we've undertaken and the leadership role that we have taken in the space of Three Waters. So this will continue through this, and undertaking that work with the Hiranui and Kaikoura councils. We have an excellent working relationship with the mayors and CEs there, and we'll continue that work. And then there's the check-in points that we've mentioned. Then we'll go out to the public when we really have that information, so that we can let them know in an informed way what options we have, so we can meet the water services delivery plan as we'll be required to by law.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In seconding this, I look back on where we've been. Massive thanks to previous councils, previous staff and current staff for where this council sits with regard to Three Waters. It was not that long ago, Rangiora took its drinking water from 3 15-metre wells off the Ashley River. When the river was up, the water came out the tap slightly brown, and it was unprotected completely and absolutely. So if an overseas tourist had to do something in the river up in the upstream and had a crook cut, unfortunately it put Rangiora at risk because of that ailment. So we went to Kaikoura and went deep, 175 metres off Smith Street, and poured it over to Rangiora. That cost a lot of money, and we loan funded it for the future. And we continue to upgrade, as evidenced by work currently going on in Blackett Street at the moment. We constantly upgrade. Unlike other councils around the country that look at lines on budget maps and say we can take this out, we can take that out, makes us look good this year, don't worry about next year. That has not been the attitude of this council or previous councils that have sat around the table. Continuing on wastewater, Rangiora used to put its sewage into the Southbrook Stream, which went into the Cam River, which went into the Kaiapua River, which went into the Waimakariri River before it was discharged out to sea. Kaiapua went into Macintosh's Drain, which went into the Waimak, which went out to sea. Woodend, the antiquated sewage treatment plant on Gladstone Road, was leaking like a sieve. At Waikiki Beach, there's a colourful photograph of the former Deputy Mayor, Jo Kane, holding bits and pieces that she had seen, with good gloves on, I might add, that she had seen in the forest to the south of the Waikiki settlement, which had overflowed from our very antiquated wastewater system. So we have invested heavily not only in drinking water supplies, but also in wastewater. And that is why, I'm very proud of where our council is now and where it's going to continue for a long, long time. I guess the only concern I have, and I mentioned it when we discussed this a wee while ago, I'm all for looking at options with other councils, in particular our northern friends, but there will be other opportunities, I'm sure, and I want to know what state their supplies or their infrastructure is in. I suspect one of our more southern neighbours, I don't think it's that good from what I've heard. I don't know that for sure because I haven't seen the data, but I would dread to think that we could be inheriting Wellington and fixing problems of those nature in the future with ratepayers' money from here, when our ratepayers have already invested so heavily. So, look, a lot of water to go under the bridge, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking forward to the journey on this one, and I agree with you regard to your comments on the previous government. That just was not the way forward. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I have Councillor Williams, the Deputy Mayor. Did you? No, sorry, Deputy Mayor Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just look, I agree with everything that's been said, and looking back is very important because if you don't look back, you can't move forward. And we must remember that this council is one of the only councils in the country that has a 150-year infrastructure plan. So we're well prepared to go into negotiations with anybody, whoever it may be, to get our water services in good nick and make sure that we're meeting not only timelines, but because the timelines don't really mean much if it isn't right. So we're going to make sure we get it right. With a 150-year infrastructure plan looking forward, it puts us in really good stead to mix it up with the other councillors and bring forward what we need to. And Councillor Brian is absolutely right. We spent the money going backwards. We need to make sure that going forward we're in the right place in which to do that. I believe we are, and I believe that the original chats with our North Canterbury family is the right way to go, and then from there, if it needs to expand or shrink from there, then I'm open to that as well. So let's get into it. Let's get the next 12 months over and get it all done on paper and make sure that we're in the right place.
Thank you, Councillor Fulton. Oh, sorry, Councillor Redmond. Did you have your hand up here? No. So Councillor Fulton first.
Right.
Councillor Redmond, sorry.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The key word for me here is discovery. And just the only concern I have is that we potentially could rush this because we are told that we have to deliver a water services plan within that X number of months. I'm just concerned that at this stage we should make provision for an extension if we need to, because I've taken more of a passing interest in water infrastructure in Hurunuri and Kaikoura over the years. I won't name particular sites, but I know there's one north of us where it might be an outlying site, but they've been taking water out of the Hurunuri River around Balmoral area. There's just an example. I don't think we're in an equivalent position to Hurunuri and Kaikoura. I think we need some very careful discovery here. I'm sure we'll do that, but I just don't. I'd hate to think that we felt that we had to rush this process for want of another 6 months or whatever extension we can buy. So that would just be my just tread carefully. I agree with the principle. I think there's no doubt there's been a lot of work done by Hurunuri and Kaikoura in the past 5 to 6 years, but we are relatively a superb position, and that's to be treasured. And so we've just got to make sure we don't rush things. So that's been my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am a little concerned with the wording in B, although hopefully your extension will broaden it. We are going down a wider road than just simply Huranui and Kaikoura, or I hope we are. I think we should be investigating all models, including the status quo, shared services, talk to Huranui and Kaikoura, and let's see what's in our best interests as well as the wider community. So that was why my question earlier related to B, because it seemed we decided which path we were going down. We were going to talk to them to see what we could come up with. I think there's also another path, and that is to look at whether we can do it on our own or not. I don't have a formed view. My mind is open to what may be the best option. So I just wouldn't like to see us narrow our investigation at this stage. But I realise we have 12 months from yesterday to come up with a water services delivery plan, and I'm pretty sure we will within that period. So I look forward to hearing the results of investigations of all models so we can make an informed decision.
Further speakers? Yes, and sorry, did you wish to speak, Councillor?
First of all, I'd like to say that I agree with and appreciate all of the statements that my colleagues have made, and I particularly appreciate the framing of the historical context that we're sitting in here now. This council has invested, upgraded, and planned, and where others of our council colleagues have not necessarily across the country. And we have fought hard to have the choice to steer our own ship. And this new reform program appears to be giving us the option to do that. And I fully support our council taking every opportunity to look at all the options and weigh up what is best for our people here, given that we have already spent the money and done the work. And we don't want to be left liable for somebody else's lack of planning when we have done that for ourselves. And we're already paying for it. And we're, of course, receiving the benefit from that. But we need to be able to have the final say, and this, at this point in time, looks like it's giving us that, and so I support it. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Just a right of reply, as has rightly been mentioned by Councillor Brian earlier and the Deputy Mayor, there's over 100 million we've spent on our three waters infrastructure over the last 20 years. And there have been some very courageous decisions that were made, and not easy ones when we were out facing rural parts of our community. They were reasonably hefty costs, as they were for the urban parts of our community as well, as Councillor Brian mentioned, especially around not only the water costs, but also the sewer and the ocean outflow at 36 million. It still remains the biggest single project that this council has ever embarked on. I do want to acknowledge the leadership of our staff in this space, in particular our Chief Executive, Jared, who's here in the team. It's been a massive piece of work over many, many years, but Jeff and Jared in particular are putting a lot of work into making sure that, and their teams, that we're in the right shape as we start to narrow down what options we will have. And I want to reassure Councillor Redmond, as you all know, because you've been briefed on this on numbers of occasions, that there is no decision being made, and there is all models are being considered and will be considered. There will be a criteria that's developed so we can at least measure that against it. But between the mayors of Huranui, Kaikoura, myself, and our CEs, along with the project manager, those work and consultant advice, that work has been undertaken right now and has been shaped over the last few months. It takes quite a lot of work to get to a point where you can evaluate all options before I would like to see us undertake due diligence with our neighbours. I think it's very important that we understand where, as any marriage, before you go into it, if you do, you go into it with your eyes wide open and you understand exactly where infrastructure is at. So we will make sure that there are joint briefings, and so we can all have a look under the hood, so to speak, and same with our neighbours, so they can understand where we're at as well. My understanding is that both Huranui and Kaikoura have invested quite considerably in their three waters, so when we're looking at options of potential partners, there is, we are looking at perhaps not entirely even, because we have much more of an asset base, but they have invested, so they're not in a situation where they're behind. But we will need to make sure that we've undertaken that due diligence properly as well. At the end of the day, if we need to extend the time frame and there's the ability to do that, Councillor Fulton, as I mentioned before, we will consider that. But we have 12 months from now in which to put forward a water services plan, unless there's an agreement differently from the government that we can achieve, but they've been very clear that they expect us to get on with it. Councils have had plenty of time to get themselves prepared, and so they're very keen to make sure that we get on with these plans and don't let them dwindle. We are in a lot of ways in a much different position to other councils. I know from the conversations that we've been in around the country that we're certainly in a strong position in that regard. Once all those options are there, we've given an indicative time frame, we'll keep you all briefed, and then importantly we'll be having that conversation with our community. I ask you all to support the recommendations before us. It's really clear no decisions have been made, and that will be subject to further briefings and decision related measures for us to contemplate as we have those options before us. With that, I'm going to put the recommendation. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Declare that carried. Thank you. We're now at 7.2, which is the submission on the draft speed limits rule. This is really just endorsing that because it's already been pre-circulated, and we had time frames in which to get that. So Sylvia, any comments you wish to make?
Just remind staff and council that we had our council workshop on the 9th of July, where they provided us with feedback, where we drafted up the submission that is generally supportive. The submission asks for further consideration on the standardisation of areas and times for speed limits around schools and funding to support implementation. We did provide a couple of examples in 3.9 and 3.16, just giving a bit of context for our district.
Thank you. Any questions of Sylvia? Councillor Williams?
Yes, on C, where generally supports the government's proposed changes to the speed settings, will we be getting a report back to council to look at possibly some of these speeds will actually reduce because of the government situation to take them back to the normal speeds, or are we just going to ignore what we've done?
I would expect that once the rule is adopted, we'll see what that final version looks like, then staff will give that due consideration and we'll get back to council.
My understanding this is likely to be further briefings, workshops on that, is perhaps Jared's present. I know Joanne's just stepped out of the room. Jared provided clarity on it. My understanding is it was to be Jared.
Yeah, look, I think the way it was just explained is pretty much exactly correct. So we are conscious that that's part of it. When the rule changes come through, we'll come back and maybe some within our district that would be captured by that, and we'll be seeking a decision from the council on that. And they just need a report, or they have to work before that. We'll just have to wait and see what finally comes out.
Thank you. Councillor Berkey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 32, 3.4.1, we are required to undertake a cost benefit analysis. Can you just expand on what that involves? Further on in there it mentions fuel and signage and the actual nuts and bolts on the road. Does that cost benefit analysis take into account the human factor of putting speed limits up or down, but mainly up, of death and damage to human and to cars? How wide does that cost benefit analysis go? And as I say, asking specifically about the medical side of it as opposed to the roading side of it.
Sorry, could you point to the page?
Page 32, 3.4.1. So define cost benefit analysis.
So the cost benefit analysis will be developed by Ministry of Transport, and that would be, we don't know the content of that at the moment. I would probably have to go back and have a look at the consultation document. I don't have that information at this moment.
Traditionally, cost benefit analysis in the transportation space has covered the fairly broad range that you addressed in your question. So when the rules come through, we'll just see whether that's still the case or exactly what's involved.
At that stage, will we get a comment to comment? Will we be able to comment or submit on that?
I don't know if there's any further opportunity to submit on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Thoughts on the meetings? Thank you.
Just following this discussion and knowing where the previous government was at with this proposal, are there any tangible remnants of their old policy left of the Road to Zero policy of any of them? I mean, what substantially has survived, to use that good term, as a recommendation?
That's a really difficult question to answer, and it's fairly broad. I think the principles of road safety still hold good regardless. So this is just basically the rulebook that we work to, but all of the science behind it and experience is
I was going to ask about the science, the calculations. We spent so much time considering, what would be the number of lives saved. We reduced the speed from 80 to 50 to all that. Was all the science behind it? Was that a big discussion as well? We're looking at it.
Well, I think we're getting into speculation here, Councillor Fulton. That, as we've mentioned, there's going to be a further workshop, and staff will, as they understand what the new rules are, will be able to clarify that further at that point. But it's just basically today we're just looking at endorsing the submission that's already gone, that's been circulated to you all. It's probably fruitless to get into any other points at the moment, unless there's any clarifying points further you wish to. Thank you. Councillor Meadows?
No, I actually.
All right. So you put a Councillor Redmond. Would you like to move, by chance?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Do you have a seconder, Councillor Williams? Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've come up with a good way of getting your attention.
You normally get my attention, Councillor Redmond, so
I'd just like to say I'm very supportive of the submission. It's a good submission, and thanks to the staff for taking our points on board. As we know, this is a new setting of speeds rule, much different from the previous one, and I agree with the commentary that it does provide a more balanced approach to setting speed limits, to look at economic impacts, and the views of local communities and road users are considered alongside safety, so it's a more balanced approach. As you'll know, I wasn't particularly happy with the last setting of speeds rule, and some councils elsewhere did all sorts of strange speed settings with that previous rule. One size certainly doesn't fit all, and I think the speed limits around schools are something we'll be able to look at. What is an appropriate period of time? We are a road controlling agency, authority, so we ultimately do set the speeds, apart from state highways, within our area, territorial area. So I think this support basically gives an endorsement to the government's new direction, and I look forward to seeing what the new setting a speed rule actually comes out as. It may be that we're actually in a good place when it comes to this new rule, because we have been fairly conservative in how we addressed the last rule. So I would encourage you to support the recommendation and the submission that we've already made. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, no, thank you for the report. I particularly like the C, recommendation C, that we generally support the government's proposal for changes, because we actually have to work with the government on all these things. So acknowledging that side of it, I think it's important. Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you. This report is simply to receive a submission that has already been put in front of all of us, that we've all had input on. And so I would just like to say that you've done an excellent job on this submission and capturing the points that we've teased out in discussions. And I very much appreciate how you have outlined the fact that some of the standardizations that have been proposed wouldn't necessarily deliver the best outcome for our community. You've also talked about the considerable extra costs that could be incurred by requiring variable signage and whatnot, and other signs. And you've also talked about the very short, once again, surprise, surprise, timeline for submission. And a bunch of other issues that we have raised in conversation with you. So at the end of the day, we just now have to sit back and wait and see what the select committee makes of our and see what comes out the other end. So for what is in front of us today, I'm supposed to try to find all the schools for that as well. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. I also support the direction of the submission, and again acknowledge Sylvia's role in pulling it all together along with Joanne and the team. I do like the direction the government's heading in this, and it's more common sense related. Look, I have asked several times if the public gallery can please be quiet. That means everyone in the public gallery, please, because it's very distracting here. So, very happy for members of the public to be there. If you wish to have conversations, please take them out. I've asked that. I'm not going to ask again. So, if you wish to have a conversation, please exit the chambers. So, I think there's a common sense position here, which I think the government's headed down, and one that we certainly did endorse was around our schools, and the safety there is very important around our schools. And there seemed to be, from a more pragmatic way that it has been dealt with, and tools that were there that weren't available to us as easy as we would like. So there were some changes there that we certainly did endorse last term. Just more broadly, and I am going to take a little license here, just to acknowledge the National Land Transport Plan of yesterday. I think we can be pleased with what's in there. We didn't quite get all the projects we'd like to see, but at least William Bypass is now in there as a is a confirmed project, and we're hopeful that they're heading at pace to get that project delivered. But good news was as well the Eastern Link, which this council has been advocating for a number of years, that the design part of that process is to be funded. We haven't not entirely clear on all the detail yet. We'll determine that, but it was mentioned in the plan yesterday, which is good news. One I would have really liked to have also seen in there was the ski bridge, but we're not going to give up on that project yet. But that's a start in the right direction for us. It's a pretty major project, and there are a range of projects that we would like to see achieved here that address the growth of our district and the safety related and road safety related concerns that we have there being addressed, and congestion related issues. So just while there was an opportunity under speed limits to talk more broadly about transport related projects, so it's a good one for us as of yesterday and as we come to terms with the rest of the announcements. Any further speakers? Right, apply. I've got the recommendation. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Declare that carried. Just wondering if we look at the temperature. It's a bit colder here. Just a little warmer would be. Thank you. So Sylvia, you can remain there for the next one, which is 7.3, which is.
Mr. Mayor, I will declare a conflict. I must clear that in the district plan, so I'll just.
Does anyone else wish to declare a conflict on this? I might just want to step away from the table because. Right. Alright, so 7.3.
So this was a consultation that was run jointly between MB and NFA, looking at making it easier to build granny flats, with the aim to increase the ability to build smaller dwellings. We had a council workshop with yourselves on the 30th of July. Again, the feedback received was generally supportive of the proposals. Those proposals were predominantly split between the building and resource management system. The submission suggests that further consideration be given to how council is notified, and also looking at the monitoring of the building construction materials used. The submission also highlights that the basis for the 60 square metres maximum granny flat size is unclear.
Thank you. Any other bits? You've finished your. Yeah. Thank you, Sylvia. Any questions? So we have a recommendation here. Is someone prepared to move? Moved Councillor Ward, seconded Councillor Goldsworthy. Would you like to speak, Councillor Ward?
No, I just think that the recommendation speaks for itself, and it's just something that we need to be doing.
Councillor Goldsworthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm going to second this motion. I think what we managed to submit highlights various concerns that we have within, I suppose, whenever you make things easier, sometimes it loosens the knot a wee bit, and there are obviously some concerns which can flow out of that. I think the staff have done a really good job of highlighting those concerns, particularly for the council. Thank you.
Thank you. We had workshops about this, so before we made the submission, so Sylvia, I think, did a really good job of picking up those points. For me, the concern was around how government arrived at 60 metres squared. I don't think there was any particular science behind that from what I gather, and that was the point we raised, because we had similarly had addressed that in our own draft of the provisions of the district plan, and we had looked carefully what we thought was the right size. So if we get a chance to speak to our submission, we have asked to do so. We'll be making those points there, and appreciate the work that staff have done in the preparation of this and the timeline. The principle behind making things easier is something that we do want to see supported, but there are some very real considerations we'd also like to see taken into account in that. So I think the submission does a really good job of getting that balance. So thank you. Any further speakers? Live reply if you wish, Councillor Ward. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. So now it's 7.4. So is really yes, thank you. Chrissy, are you presenting? We'll just wait for the two colleagues to arrive there. Chrissy and Grant, can you speak to Chrissy?
Yes, hello.
Thank you.
I will be presenting the report today. So this report is seeking approval for additional budget for Surf Life Saving New Zealand for the 24-25 summer season to allow for lifeguards and surf life saving services. I'll take the report as read. I'd just like to highlight some key points. As noted in the report, there are increased costs delivering the service due to the recommendation of an increase to 99 days of services and arrears and wage costs. The additional requested budget would have a minor rating increase as highlighted in the report. To clarify, the budget requested is to deliver the service for 99 days, and staff will work with Woodings Community Board Chair and Surf Life Saving New Zealand to determine the start date for Texas and Woodend beaches. This will include engaging with the Woodend camp for booking information, which will be taken into consideration for those dates. So Life Saving New Zealand are flexible with start dates and happy to work with council on these. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. You mentioned, so did you have anything to add? Chris, you mentioned talking with the community board chair. What about the relevant portfolio holder? Did you also consult with them too?
Yes, we will do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Come to Councillor Williams, then Redmond.
I'm just wondering how this fits in with the new government's situation of needs and wants. Would this class fall into the needs or the wants of what the government's proposing and asking council to do, considering?
I think it's crossing into a boundary. It's difficult for staff to answer. It's a judgment question, Councillor.
Could the CE answer that question then?
No, not at the current time, because it hasn't been defined. It hasn't been defined at the current time. For example, one day after the announcement, the government gave away $750,000 to a dancing competition. So until that's defined properly, I couldn't provide any sort of criteria on it.
Thank you, Councillor Redmond.
Thank you for your report. You actually preempted my question in part. I was going to ask, in fact I still will ask, how you determine the dates for paid patrols. And you have answered that, but is there any reason why that process couldn't be in the recommendation as a new clause, saying that you are authorised to engage with whoever you do, what except the community board, portfolio holder, camp, schools, whatever, to determine those dates? I understand the staff make that decision, not elected members. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Or you just add to E. You just add to E and that something along the lines that and that the community board, and that the community board chair and council portfolio holder will be consulted. Consulted on determining the days, something along that line. Will that satisfy you, Councillor?
Yes, Mr Mayor. They also consult with the campground operators in the schools when there is the need for paid lifesavers. The feeling from the community, without getting into a debate, is that they should be later rather than earlier. So I just want that process put in place.
Consultant. Okay. The four dates are agreed. So just Courtney, just note here, we're just assuming there's a mover and a seconder for that, that adds to E at the end, so it's 85 days to 99 days, and that the community Wooding Sefton Community Board Chair and and that the community board chairs, because there's more than one area, the community board chairs and relevant portfolio holder be consulted for 40 days. So okay. Councillor Cairns.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chrissy, for the report. Just a couple of questions. The first one is in section 4.4 in regards to our current budget is $118,000 to surfing clubs. It says in 4.4 that due to increased wages there'll be an additional 16,000. Is that additional 16,000, or is that covered in the 118,000 that we've already put aside in terms of the budgets?
That is additional to the 118 set aside, yes.
Okay, so it's additional. And the next question I would like to is now the table that you've presented in 4.1. So the yellow table there, it says about 30 days. Now that table there would have 4 stat days, which would probably be more expensive, whereas option A has no stat days, which should be cheaper, and then option B has 2 stat days, but all of the prices of all of the approximations of the costs are all exactly the same. Can you explain that, please?
Yes. So the approximate cost is the maximum cost that it would be. Yes, because it would cover less public holidays in your option and option B. It would be a reduced cost. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I'll just add there that, as been noted, we'll be working with them to set exactly when the start and finish will be, and that, depending on those dates, will definitely have an impact on where how many stat days within that plan. So once we know the dates, we'll know exactly how much is required to do that, and be able to adjust how much is required, I guess, for that. The idea of the recommendation report is to make sure there's sufficient budget for, I guess, if the dates that have been recommended at this point by them are set, which is the top amount. So we're hoping that if it gets shifted one way or another, that may see a reduction in that. But we want to make sure that there is sufficient budget for if when we go for that consultation, the answer is that it does stay on that.
Thanks for the clarification.
Any other questions? There's a big recommendation with what's just been suggested. You wish to move, Councillor?
Robbie, do you want to move? I'll second it.
So you have to move it as proposed. Councillor Bryan, seconded. Councillor Blackie. Might just want to turn your microphone on, Councillor. You had my attention. Councillor Bryan.
Well, just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, whether I obviously read this report, it was a no-brainer for me. Absolutely essential that our beaches are covered by professionals. I wasn't a professional, but it was a memory trails mistake for many years. Lifesaving club there, and dedication and training involved in these individuals is exemplary, and they do a brilliant service for our community.
Councillor.
Yes, thank you. I endorse that. I find it quite bizarre that anybody would think that saving lives is a nice to have, but to me, the bottom line is F in the recommendations. This request of theirs is going to add $1 per ratepayer, and that's a no-brainer.
I'm with the others here. I support the recommendation. I do have concern about the cumulative impact of adding things in, especially outside budget rounds, but in this instance, because understanding the rationale, it would be something I wouldn't be prepared to do without good explanation. I'm more satisfied that the community board chairs and relevant portfolio holder will be consulted as part of that and extending those dates and when the timing of that should be. I think that's relevant. But look, I'm with others. It's making comments like, nice to have. This is not a nice to have. This is essential. This is ensuring that those who are on our beaches are safe and protected. And I don't want it on my conscience that in the scheme of things, an amount of extending this could have saved some lives. So that to me is the kick. And I've actually been out and visited the Surf Lifesaving club out there and see firsthand what they do, and they do amazing work. There's a huge amount of voluntary effort that also goes in. So while there might be some paid role there, there is a huge amount that goes in to support that effort, and they extensively fundraise what they do, and there's a lot of young people involved in their support for it. So it's a really great program, and one that I do support. But again, as mentioned, we've always got to look at the cumulative effect on our rating and where these considerations come up. But in this instance, I'm persuaded because of the nature of this, and that there will be consultation with those parties as mentioned. Here are the speakers. I've got Councillor Kearns, Williams, Ward, Redmond.
I'll be certainly supporting this. I too am in favour of everybody learning to swim and also to be safe on the water. And I'm certainly encouraged that if all the colleagues can support this, because the Woodland Sefton Community Board have been trying to extend the dates of surf life saving participation on those beaches for some time now, and they'll be very, very thankful of this increase in having lifesavers out on those beaches, along with the Pegasus residents group as well. Thank you.
Councillor Ward.
I will also be supporting this because I think it's really important, and I have noticed that Pegasus and Waikuku Beach in the summertime, there's more and more people really enjoying the beach, and the access particularly to the Pegasus Beach with the new platform that's just been built has added a lovely support for access groups to enjoy the view there, and more people are coming to the beaches. So it's really important that we have the lookout and the surf life saving people on duty to look after the more and more people using the beaches. So it's very important.
Councillor Williams.
Yeah, whilst the Surf Life Saving Club, they do a fantastic job. A lot of volunteers, really good. Council's putting in already $118,090 excluding GST already into it, but adding an extra 20% increase onto the ratepayers as well. Where do we stop in a situation where a ratepayer's hurting already? So I won't be supporting this, but I would be supporting the life saving to think outside the square, and maybe there's some people using those areas have some donation boxes out there a bit more prominent in making it user pays, because unfortunately the poor ratepayer cannot keep on increasing things by 20%, etc., and everything we do. We've got to put a stop to it somehow. We just can't afford to keep doing it. So I won't be supporting that, but I'm all in favour of the wonderful job the lifesavers do, and lives are important, but maybe there's a different way of fundraising for this rather than hitting the poor ratepayers again.
Councillor Redmond, followed by Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the amendment or the change proposed, I'll be supporting this recommendation. It's rather hard to determine what value you put on a life. We've provided in this recommendation for an increased budget. I was concerned at what period that budget was to be spent over, and as Councillor Cairns indicated, the Woodend Sefton Board has been asking for around 4 years for a change in those dates for the paid period to start after Christmas through the whole January period. And one of my colleagues on the Woodend Sefton Community Board, Shona Powell, the chair, has indicated to me that this is big bang for buck, given the cost of the additional funding sought, given the population growth in the district, particularly in the Woodend and Pegasus area, and Ravenswood in particular is going gangbusters. And the other factor to bear in mind is the beaches serve the whole district. So I understand that there is a percentage increase and it does have an effect, small although it is, on the rate. This is something that I don't think is nice to have. I think it is something we must have, so I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Councillor Meadows.
Thank you. I know in the report it outlines an option for more flexibility in whether or not some days we have lifeguards out, like for instance, if it's bucketing down rain and a cold southerly, it's probably not really required. So I think that we have the ability to use some common sense as to when to deploy these people. I wouldn't support moving it out from the 4th of January to the 2nd of February, for instance, because looking at this year's calendar, the majority of people will have had their Christmas holidays by the beach and have gone back. The last day of Christmas holidays is the 1st of January for most people. And yes, of course, yeah, but I think that the option we've got gives us flexibility to have cover where it's required. And for 90 cents, 94 cents, I have been one who has actually witnessed a drowning death from an uncontrolled waterway. And I don't wish that on anybody. That will haunt me till my dying days. And we need to make sure that we keep people safe when they're out in the water because bad things happen. You can have medical events in the water. We can say use common sense and stay out of our tides and whatever else, but you don't know what's going to happen when you're out there, and it's best if you've got somebody looking. So I support this. Thanks.
Councillor Fortune, followed by
I think there's real value in closely sort of consulting with the residents, with the community board, the people who interact with the water all the time. So, and if that allows us to change our dates to respond to where the real need is, where the most need is, rather, I think that's good policy. I don't think risk of stating the obvious that you can state the value of throwing a straw to a person with a hand in the air in choppy waters. I think this is a case where cost-benefit analysis should fall squarely on the side of protecting human life and well-being. So I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Atkinson.
Thanks, Mayor. I think it was Councillor Redmond said he wasn't sure about the value of life. Well, according to NZTA, it's $7 million if someone loses their life on the road. I have questions around that figure, but that's the value that NZTA put on the life. I think what we put into this is a pittance. We must remember that these people that we train are generally university students, or people that are still in school or come out of school, and we're training them on the bottom run. Whether it's actually a living wage or whether it's just the minimum wage that they're paid to do this job, to save lives of our grandchildren or our grandparents, whichever way that may be. Of being a saver of lives at sea for many years, I can assure you it is never fun or never with any value. You cannot put a value on saving a life at sea. It is a horrific event when it happens. May I acknowledge Mr. Ensor, who's sitting in the back. We talk about the community board. Mr. Ensor's been fighting for this for a long time, and the dates to be in the right place. I can remember talking to him a long time ago in the establishment of Pegasus, and how that beach was going to be a beach of the future, and we needed to invest in doing that. If not us, who? Whose responsibility is it? And while user pays, I'm not sure that rattling your box up and down the beach is going to work in raising any funds, particularly with those who keep their change inside their budgie smugglers while they're swimming. So I'm not sure that that's even an option. but to even mention that saving lives at sea could be a nice to have is actually insulting.
Any further speakers? Brian, replying, Councillor Brown?
Just very briefly, Mr. Mayor. Please note E, it's easy enough to throw around percentages, but E makes it quite clear why it's a 23% increase. It's to meet staff costs and wages, and also it's to increase service, from 85 to 99 days. So while it's very easy to sit here and throw away around percentages, you need to look at the rationale on the percentage as well. And I'm not going to deign some of the comments in my reply with just not going as special. Simply plug it in and start streaming your.
All right, thank you. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, declare carried. You wish to abstain? Councillor Williams' abstention recorded. Fair carried. Thank you. Thanks, Chris and Grant. All right. Now, item 7.5, which is the review of the road maintenance services under the LGA, and this has been subject to a number of workshops. So, Joanne, have you any comments you wish to add to your report or highlight?
No, happy to take it as read. Just the two key changes are the contract type and duration, which we have set previous briefings.
Thank you. Any questions? Does the portfolio holder wish to move the recommendation? You don't need to put your sign up. You second it?
I've done your question first.
Well, I did ask for questions, but yes, your question, Councillor Williams.
So this report removes the drainage away from the roading side of it, is that correct?
Effectively, there's a further report, plus the federal consideration in 3 more reports time, and that's essentially now removed for drain, which is to. But the combination of these 2 reports, yes, that's correct.
It just doesn't read that way that the drainage is removed from here, that's all.
So this is purely to do with the roading maintenance contract.
Thank you. You're moving, unless there's any further questions, seconded Councillor Atkinson. Like to speak, Councillor Atkinson?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, I'd encourage you to support the recommendations in this report. A review is necessary to comply with the Local Government Act and also the expiry of our current contract with Cord. The main or significant changes are there is a new contract form proposed, NZS 3917. The term, it's proposed that the new contract be for a 7-year term, 5+1+1, subject to NZTA approval. We also, under the Local Government Act, must test and quote the cost effectiveness of current arrangements. That's section 171 of the Local Government Act. This is a single contract which essentially is for roading only and not drainage. So that's another change. It will be an open tender and there will be no decision reached until I think next year from memory. So this is starting the process and it's something we don't really have any choice about. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Deputy Mayor Atkinson?
All sequels, yeah.
Any further speakers? Right, I'll put, unless you want to respond to yourself, put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, declare it carried. We're now at 7.6, so we've got 2 councillors under D, so it's recommending the appointment of Councillor Edmonds as the portfolio holder and 2 councillors to be part of the hearing panel. So if you can think about that, who would be interested while Joanne's speaking to us.
Thank you. So this report is seeking approval of a number of things. Firstly, sealing of Riverside Road subject to the residents agreeing to top up to the 30% cost share under the Rural Seal Extension Policy, to carry out a special consultative process for a targeted rate to cover the cost of the sealing, to approve the draft statement of proposal which is attached to this report, and to appoint as councillors to the hearing panel. Staff have been working with the residents following requests for sealing of the road and have sought initial feedback. And a report was brought to council last year which agreed in principle to sealing the road, subject to us going through this process. The consultation documents, as I noted, were attached to the report, and the proposed targeted rate would be over a 20-year period. Hearings are proposed for October, and I'm happy to take any questions from you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? So is there an interest of any to, so just in terms of process on this, no decision's been made on this. We're going out to consultation, contracts haven't been let, and so we'll undertake a hearings process before any decisions made.
Yes, that's correct. So we would be aiming for the hearings panel to work with the hearings panel to bring a report back to council in November. We have tendered the work but not approved or awarded a contract at this point, and wouldn't do so until after we had approval from council to continue.
So undertaking the tender is to get accurate figures to undertake the consultation, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Jason?
Just noting that this is one of these rates which don't increase the level of service to all of our communities, so we have to consider this one probably outside of the average rate. So that's why it's not a cumulative rate that's shown here.
Okay. Okay, so we have a recommendation. Is there any colleagues who are prepared to join Councillor Redmond? Councillor Cairns and Donald, so you can just once. Councillor Ward? Okay. You got your little sign up there you wish to make here, Councillor Redmond? With those two names?
I thought he was going to reject.
I suppose he's got the ultimate veto being the mover. Seconded by, I'll second it. Do you wish to speak, Councillor?
Just briefly, it's process. I'm not vetoing volunteers. Look forward to working with you both. There has been no decision made. It's the start of the process, and the hearing panel, after hearing submissions, will no doubt come back with a recommendation for council to consider. So roll on the hearing, and I will be away in November, so we need to get it wrapped up in October.
Okay, I support the process, undertaking the process, and obviously what's recommended back we'll consider at that point. But thanks, colleague, for Councillor Cairns and Boards for volunteering your time as well as the portfolio owner. Any other speakers? Do you wish to respond?
No, thank you.
I'll put the recommendation. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Declare that carried. Now at 7.7, which is the subdivision contribution program for Ellis Road. Joanne and Kieran, welcome.
So this report is to provide an update on the Lightkeep program for the 2024-25 subdivision contribution area. It includes projects which are related to development which require council funding a share of the improvement, and also any requests for seal extensions in rural areas. Over the next year, we have a high number of projects which are likely to progress, and included in that is a request from the Calpines for the sealing of Ellis Road, as well as the Riverside Road seal extension, which we just spoke about. If all projects currently identified within the programme progress, then it's likely that this area will be overspent. We do manage this area on an unders and overs basis and have carried out a review of spend in this area over the last 6 years. So the 4 years from 2018-19 through to 21-23 were underspent. But 22, 23 and 23, 24 have been slightly overspent. Overall, even with these overspends, it's predicted that this, across the period, there is still sufficient available to fund the work which is proposed, should it all be carried out. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Jane. Do you want to add anything, Kim?
No, Diane's covered everything.
Any questions, colleagues? So we've got a recommendation there. Portfolio holder? Yes. Seconded by Councillor Fulton. Would you like to speak?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report, Joanne and Karen. Very good report, very clear. It is an under and overs game. Some years were under and other years were over. And there are other things in the pipeline which will probably come up in the next year or two. So it is a process. One that has been on the books is the Alice Road one, McAlpines. I think that's the Shingle Road just round the corner from McAlpines. So these are all worthy roads that do crop up. So I certainly would encourage you to support the recommendations. And bear in mind, we are going over at the moment, but there are overs and unders, and if you look at it over a 5 or 6 year period, we are actually significantly under the budget.
Thank you. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you. Just particularly the McAlpines gives me mind to actually. It was the last conversation I think I had with Andrew Davidson from McAlpines, and he happened to mention this particular piece of road. I didn't know it at the time, but yeah, I it's an example of something that's been needed attending to for some time. So yeah, it's good to see that we're moving on this. Some of these roads have a bit of history to them, so I'll understand approving this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Recommendation was, sorry, right reply, Councillor Redland. I put that, put recommendation, all in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Okay, next is 7.8, section 17A, review of rural drainage maintenance contracts. Welcome, Kelly and Jill. Okay.
Thank you.
So, see James is also online as well, so
yes,
who's speaking?
So I'll introduce the report. James, I'm not sure if you've met him at the table yet. He's our strategic asset management advisor and the author of this report.
He's just saying he's just observing, so he's just put them up on the screen. Jason, did you want to join the table as well? You're welcome to come up and join if you wish. Sorry, Kelly.
Yeah, so the purpose of this report is twofold. Firstly, to inform the Council of the findings of our Section 17A review for the rural drainage maintenance works, and second, to seek approval of the recommended approach of procuring the rural drainage maintenance works externally, separate from the road maintenance contract. So you'll recall that we looked at 5 different options. A combined roading and drainage contract as per the current approach, a rural drainage maintenance only contract, a supplier panel of drainage maintenance contractors bringing it in-house with the wood unit, or shared services with neighbouring councils. So you'll see on pages 214 and 215 of the agenda in table 3 the overall scoring that we gave to those 5 different approaches, and the option of separating out the rural drainage from the roading works had the highest score, with a score of 14 to have a drainage specific external contractor. So what we're planning on doing is bringing a follow-on report back to council in October, and that will cover the type of contract, the duration, and some details around some of the maintenance requirements and inspection specifications for the proposed contract. So we just, in terms of timeframes, we're looking at awarding this middle of next year to give enough time to mobilise the works prior to the current contract expiring on the 1st of November 2025. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Does the staff have anything they want to add? Questions? No questions? Do you wish to lead us? Sorry, Councillor Brian.
Very briefly, and I appreciate the report more or less. As you know, some of us have been advocating or wanting considered a single wide drainage. This will have no impact, I'm guessing when I read this. If we make a political decision about the community on that proposal at some stage, this 2025 contract will have no impact. Money's money.
You're referring to the rating review, District Waimakariri? Yes, correct. There will be no impact on that.
Wish to move Councillor Williams, seconder Councillor Williams. Wish to speak, Councillor Williams.
Thank you for this report. It makes me as the portfolio holder happier. This is exactly pretty much what for all the advisory boards have been asking for a while. So thank you for this report.
Councillor Williams, seconder.
Yes, also thank you for the report. I had always previously leaned towards a preference of roading and drainage together, as you would probably know, given the perceived synergies between the two and hopefully savings to be made and efficiencies and all that sort of thing. But that hasn't been borne out in practice, and your section 17A report has very handily laid out the pros and cons of all of that and converted my thinking. So I'm happy to support this motion. And hopefully this works out as well as we are looking at.
Thank you. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think this recommendation sort of bears out sort of the on the ground experience, not just of our contractors, but the feedback we've had from our drainage advisory groups and just the actual realities of rural drainage. It can be a difficult sort of specialised field. You do need to actually have the right gear, the right places at the right time. And I think that assessment table of 5.3, the fact is that we've got a 14 next rating down was a 6. I mean, that's quite a marked difference by anyone's assessment. So I'm confident that we're making the right decision for you. So I support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for your report. Like Councillor Mealings, initially I thought there was advantage in having both contracts taken together. My first obstacle came when I suggested sort of cutting and slicing and putting various portions out for tender, one contract combining both, and then individual ones. So that logistically that became a bit difficult, I think, even difficult in my mind. So I support the recommendations, and the advantage with doing this is that we're in the position of choosing who the drainage contractor will be. And if we went out with one contract, that would not necessarily have been the case. We may not have had control over who the roading person, for example, chose as a subcontractor for drainage. So I'd encourage colleagues to support the recommendations.
Any further speakers? Do you wish to reply, Councillor Williams? I've got the recommendation. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? That's a carry, thank you. The key to carry. Alright, now 7.9, so is that Kay or Sarah? Sarah.
Good afternoon, Council. I will take this report as read. There has been an indication from one councillor of interest as at the beginning of the report. However, it's up to the council, and this position that goes through to the end of this term. So
You want to have,
next year.
you want to have pistoles with Dawn with Tim to wrestle over this position? He's councillor.
There's one point to make.
Sorry, did you wish to seek, you were wanting to seek this position, Councillor Bolton?
No, I just had a question along the appointments, but I can come to that with another member. Some information has come to hand with.
So you don't wish to seek?
No, it's with regards to Mark Brown. Do we have anything?
There is a report going to the Oxford Board.
So that could be dealt with there, could it?
Yes.
So I understand he's a
So
little
this is
bit
the council.
wavering as to whether he wants to stand or not. In fact, he doesn't. He really wants to now.
So we're seeking a council.
Well, that's a matter for the Oxford Board to determine.
Yeah,
correct.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? So we A and B, as is mentioned in the report, there is an interest at 1.2 by Councillor Bolton. So you're happy to move that, Councillor?
Yeah, yes.
You'll move it, and seconded by Councillor Blakey. Just before I check, it's moved and seconded. You shut the speak, Councillor. Oh, you'll accept that nomination?
I will.
I know, a very good person to represent us, so look forward to see what happens there, Tim.
Councillor Blakey, any further speakers? Put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, declare that carried. Don't think we need pistolas at dawn, so you'll be fine. All right, thanks, Sarah. You're here for the next one, 7.10, which is the ECAN representation review.
Yes, they've been out for their representation review, and we just draw the council's attention to the two constituents in the North Canterbury area. There isn't any proposal to change the two councillors that are appointed to that area in the current representation review. The changes that they're proposing are further south. So we're just asking council whether they would like to actually submit a very short submission in support of the proposal just around the North Canterbury focus, or to the matter stay quiet on that. The submission process did actually technically close last night. However, we have spoken to ECAN and they will accept a late submission from the council, knowing that today was a council meeting and consideration was being given. I take the report as read.
Thank you. Any questions? I personally think we should make a submission that supports the necessity differently. I think we should. Supports our representation remaining as is for North Canterbury. Keep out the other measures that's for South Canterbury to continue. Is there any disagreement in doing this? Doesn't need to be a longer submission either, for Sylvia's benefit. Right, so we've got a recommendation there, if there's no further questions. So A, B, C and E, I think it would be. So someone here to move. Moved Councillor Fulton, seconded Councillor, couldn't determine, was it Redmond? Yeah. I was looking to my left. So Councillor Fulton, would you like to speak?
Yes, I think that this is an opportunity, really, I suppose, to walk that fine line between doing what's in our best interest in Canterbury. I think we're well suited for our current representation of the personnel and the numbers of representatives we have. But at the same time, I think we'd be best just to say I'm commenting on representation in other parts of the region.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Redmond.
Thank you. Happy to support the recommendation. we have good representation from our local ECAN representatives. We have 2 members with divergent views, so we do get a balance of opinion from them, and they're always very willing to come and see us, so there is no change to that. Could be new people following the next election who would know. I am curious where Environment Canterbury got their statistics from, because we had trouble using statistics when we considered a representation review. But I'm not going to go there because I don't really want to get involved south of the Waimak. I think that's a matter for ECAN and those constituencies further south. So very happy to support the view in relation to the North Canterbury constituency.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Right reply, Councillor Gordon. I'll put that, all those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Thanks, Sarah and Sylvia. You can stay, Sarah, if you'd like, please. 7.11.
Okay, we're just bringing before you the policy on briefing and workshop sessions, which is due for review, and we have conducted a workshop a couple of months ago with the council and received some minor suggestions that we have woven into the document, and you will see that on page 259 of your agenda and red highlights through there. And it's just an opportunity to tweak up the policy for clarity going forward, and it's due for next review in February 2026.
Thank you. Any questions? There's a recommendation. So we move to let the Mayor second Councillor Kearns. Do you wish to speak?
I should say that these need to be incorporated and have no problem with what's there. It's all good stuff.
Councillor Goldsworthy? Oh, sorry, Kearns, sorry.
Thank you, Sarah, for the view and the staff, all the work that you've done in terms of making, what you say, tweaking or massaging the policy to ensure that it now aligns with the Ombudsman opinion. Thank you for the work that you've done.
Thank you. Any further speakers? I'll put that, all those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Thanks, Sarah. Next is the proposal for funding for a submission on quarry loading. Thank you.
I'm just presenting this report on behalf of the Rangiora Community Board, Rangiora Community Board. As stated, Mr. Mayor, the purpose of the report is to seek funding from the council to enable the community board to form a submission to represent the community's views on proposed quarry activities and construction operation of the landfill, proposed landfill near Road. The board is seeking $10,000 to support the appointment of an appropriate independent expert to help them to form their submission. At a recent meeting on the boards, they have appointed the chair and 2 board members to oversee the development of that submission. Should the council support this recommendation and provide the funding? I'm very happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Councillor Williams?
Yeah, a very similar proposal happened in the Oxford Community Board for the quarry there. Is that a similar amount was given to the Oxford Community Board to the Rangiora one?
I understand that the amount given to the Oxford Community Board was higher than this.
So why would you have E saying after the allocation funds exhausted, the board will need to withdraw from proceedings? Why is there a preference to look after the Ahoka board compared with the Rangiora one?
That's a really good observation. I think probably he should read that they would either need to come back to council for further funding or make a decision.
Just take it out, don't negate it.
No, that's a good observation.
Yeah. I'll test from the chair. I'll move and take it out. You have a second. Unless there's any other questions, sorry. Just speaking to it, I think this is on an equity basis. We there is a range of concerns certainly being expressed by the community, and they are well resourced in terms of the community members who certainly fronted, and we've seen that. It's appropriate that our community board are resourced in order to put forward an opinion on behalf of our community as well. Without expressing a view on the application, because I don't think it's appropriate for us to do so, I have raised this matter with Environment Canterbury in the sense that these ongoing applications that are coming forward are having quite an undue impact in our communities. These were not what was expected when trans waste was brought about, and that there's the Cape Valley landfill, which was to deal with all small landfills proposals like this. There's been some changes that have gone on that have meant around a range of things. These applications are starting to sneak back into rural communities. So I have raised it at that level that it's becoming an issue for our community. I raised it at Mayoral Forum the other day. And I was interested to know if it was happening in other council localities as well. I don't have a problem with quarries. Quarries are, they're part and parcel, but when you're getting into landfills, there is an outcome there that had been considered in the development of Cape Valley, and my understanding is Cape Valley has a capacity of up to 150 years. Might not all be consented immediately, but there's processing capacity for it, and that's what it was set up for. So without getting into the merits or otherwise, just asked ECAN to consider that, and perhaps a bit more education about exactly what Cape Valley was set up for in the first place, because it did was to address all these small little landfills that were in our communities, so that they didn't get the proliferation of them everywhere. So I do support our board having a view and to be resourced, and if they require further funding, potentially I'll always be open-minded to considering that. Second, Councillor Williams.
I fully support what just been said. There is a lot of community backlash, and this is the same as what's happened in Oxford. I wouldn't mind if it was possible to get a staff report on it, because I understand in Christchurch City Council, for example, this could not happen. So, why, just...
That's why I've asked ECAN in OSC is having that
That's
conversation.
the
councils
on our council side, they're the same as the Christchurch City Council. It can't happen apparently. So whether we can look into that situation and give a report, but I fully support funding the community board to look into the situation. And by some chance it's not quite enough, they're quite welcome to come back and we can discuss it as well. But I think this particular one's going to be quite well funded privately anyway. So anyway, happy to support this.
Just for the council's benefit, Judy and I talked about bringing policy back to council that helps guide community boards and the council on future submissions for consent type processes. So we'll bring back some policy which provides guidance for you to have a look at and make some decisions there.
Okay, thank you. Further speakers, briefly, Councillor Bolton, because we're going to break on that.
Just really an observation. This is not a commentary on the merits, but I think between the Oxford situation and this one, there are some differences in that the Oxford community had very little resources and funding. There wasn't a coherent large group, basically marshalling funding, and I think that's fine and good for this group. But we just have to retain that principle that this is a community board that represents the whole community, and it's not sort of the proxy representative of that one protest group. As vocal and as well resourced as they seem to be and well organised, this is a community board, just like the Oxford one was, that represents the whole community. So if there are people in there that have other views, then the community board has bound to consider them as well. And I don't know who those people might be. just to sort of put that, I think you know what I'm saying, this is a community board for the whole. There might be other interests to come forward and a community board to represent them as well, so, yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to exercise a right of reply. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Declare that carried. Thank you, Joe. Just before we break for afternoon tea, I just, where's Adrian? She disappeared, did she? Oh, there she is. Yeah. So, today, in case members aren't, thank you, Joe, very much, are aware that Adrian has served our council for 21 years in a governance capacity, both working in an admin, originally for the admin team and in the governance. This is to be her last council meeting today. She's going to finish up towards the end of the month, but will be her last council meeting. So when I found that out yesterday, I thought, right, I need to do something about that. And there will be an official farewell that's outside of today. But Adrian, I just wanted to acknowledge just how much you've meant to us and our council over those years. I've been an elected member most of that time, and I think a number of us who've served over that just want to acknowledge just how amazing you've been and will continue to be. But you've been very special to us in the admin role that you've fulfilled as council secretary, looked after us, and didn't want to let that go by without it being appropriately acknowledged by the elected members. So I have a small token on behalf of us all, and also we're going to share in some afternoon tea with you as well. And I might have actually accidentally mentioned to Lawrence as well, so you can blame me for that. So, but Adrian, on all our behalf, thank you for all that you have done for us over the years, for your service to our community. And also, we wish you all the best for your future. I'm sure you won't be a stranger to us, but you go with our love, and thank you so much for everything you've done. Yeah.
It's lovely.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much.
And we'd like to now ask, we're going to break for afternoon tea. So it's in the councillors area, so if you'd like to come and join us, Lawrence, you're welcome to come and join us too. But does any other members want to say anything before we break?
We might be here all afternoon.
Okay, well, we can say that privately. No, you don't need to. We've now got, I think it's Black Heron coming to present. Black Heron Beaches. We've got everyone here. Just wait, is Nikki in there floating around somewhere? Here's Jason. Okay, oh yeah.
Is this working? No?
Just give us a minute while we're just waiting to find another meeting.
Middle button when you're ready.
There she is. Adrian, are you taking over now, eh?
Yes. Yes.
Good stuff. Final stretch.
That's where you're. Yes, yes.
Alright. Just this time you ready, Adrian. So you've got welcome to our meeting. So providing an opportunity for deputation today. So up to 10 minutes. Thank you for making yourself available. So Simon, did you have anything you want to add at the start?
No, just here in case this question around the process.
Right.
I'll leave the vote in capable hands.
Thank you very much. Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you for the time to speak today. Kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Dr. Logan Williams. I'm a serial inventor and entrepreneur based in Christchurch. Today I've developed and sold 4 businesses at age 28 and I'm currently listed on Forbes 30 Under 30. Today I'd like to take an opportunity to present to you my vision for a research and development park in waimakariri to house my companies, but also my venture capital fund that I'm building over the next 6 months. So here's the team of one of my companies, 28Zero. We measure and destroy methane. I own it in partnership with Fonterra and Silicon Valley investors. We recently just raised $3.5 million at a $25 million valuation, and I own a third of the business. We're currently based in Selwyn, but we're very keen to move out to Waimak. And our team of 20 will be moving out with us, but that's our leadership team there. One of the other key companies I own is Shearage. We add sheep's wool to plastic to make any sort of consumer products. We make 55 consumer products. Wool catamaran is one of them. I started a business with New Zealand Merino. We're also wanting to move that company into the Waimak district as well, and we currently have a factory in South Auckland in Otahuhu. Coinciding with the R&D park, our vision is to establish an MBA program for entrepreneurs, and to do this we've partnered with Lincoln University and Canterbury University to deliver this course. So if you can envisage phase 1 of the R&D park being Shearage, 28Zero and an MBA program. This MBA program will have 120 students per year, and will also have an undergraduate component which will have anywhere from 500 to 600 students, which will also be coming to the region as well. This is kind of an AI visualization of kind of what we're trying to do here. I'll allude to the land that we want to allocate soon. But the goal is to do modular retrofitting of 40-foot containers. We've already done 12 40-foot containers converted to offices. This way we can access TC3 or low quality land and put temporary commercial property on there to not only house our staff but also do R&D testing. So why waimakariri? We've searched across all of the country, and it really comes down to when I first went to Microsoft's office in Seattle, and I found that that was the area just outside Seattle where they decided to be housed, and it allowed them to have infinite growth and a lot less regulations than larger cities, but also access to an amazing, cluster of people being in the largest city right next door. Waimakariri has also got a lot of opportunities and is growing immensely quickly, so I believe it's much needed in an R&D park of this nature. This is the land that we would love to develop, which is currently TC3. It's in Kaipoi. It's on the corner of Jones Street and Charles Street. That's a bit of a rough look at what the modular system would be as phase 1, but ideally over the next 3 years, over 5 phases, we would develop out
full 2.5 hectares into a full R&D park. Unlike other proposals that have been on land similar to this, we aren't speculating. We have the capital, we have the buildings, we have the companies, we have the people, we have the commitments. So it's not a matter of dilly-dallying. As soon as we have an agreement in place, we would be hitting the ground running with this project. Great, I'm conscious we're running out of time here, but yes, like I said, we have a 5-stage process in which we would deliver this, and this will be backed with our $10 million fund from the venture capital fund we're currently raising. Yeah, we're short on time, so I'll just keep skipping through. But yeah, in summary, we already have backing from the tertiary providers, being University of Canterbury. We already have backing from 2 of New Zealand's biggest companies, Fonterra and New Zealand Merino, and we're currently raising capital for the venture capital fund. And finally, we're also partnering with Ngāi Tahu of Ngāi Tahu descent, and they're fully in support of this idea and are also looking to be part of the venture capital fund. So with that quick summary, thank you for your time. Please open to questions.
Thanks, Logan. And I guess our process is, thank you for introducing this, that you would work with our staff following this to, and they would bring us back a proposal for our consideration. So we won't be giving a view here today, but it was just providing an opportunity for you to speak to us. So in terms of the location that you've selected there, is that the absolute, or are there other, you're relaxed as to where you might go in that particular location, because you're quite specific, Jones and Charles Street. Is there a reason why you're looking there?
We're looking for the real challenge here is finding land that is commercially viable as well for our use, and that land is specifically mixed use. It is quite a struggle to find accurate land in Selwyn or Waimak that would be suitable, that is commercial and not in the centre of town, being rural kind of based. I also think it's beneficial being right next to the Kaiapoi town centre. I think there's a lot of opportunity in Kaiapoi because at the moment there's not much hustle and bustle, and I think, you know, if we had another 400 people based there, it would be great for the town.
Thank you. Questions? Yeah,
well, I just wanted to be more view for the staff really. How do we get this through the property group? That's where it should be heading.
That's a good question. We can bring back a report through the property portfolio working group that would come up through council via that channel, if that's the preference of council.
I think that would be the right vehicle for it to go. Councillor Beaton?
Yeah, and perhaps a question for Simon. The site that's been identified, is that constrained? I may not have my bearings right, but is there a motor caravan park one side and a reserve or dog park or BMX track the other side? In terms of growth and expansion, how suitable would that site be?
You're in the right place. So the Motor Caravan Association would be directly to the north of that site, just in the same area. You'll know that to the west is the park and ride, and then to the east is the sort of Zen dog park. Look, from a zoning perspective, the proposed district plan, I think, says that it's mixed use. I think this use wouldn't challenge that zoning. It becomes a question for council as to whether the council believes that this would be the best value use for that site. That's probably the largest remaining site on the east for the mixed use business areas. There are other sites, mixed use sites in Kaiapoi and potentially other sites as well. But a report will explore that and bring those options along the pros and cons for each of the sites back to you. And we would sort of canvass the views on each of those sites as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just I looked on the site. The video is quite good. Just the other 2/3 ownership. Would you be willing to divulge who that is? And Black Heron, interesting name. Why that name?
Well, to answer your second question, Black Heron is my favourite animal, and it's my family trust, so my wife and I own that entirely. We built that after our first sale of our first company when I was 19 years old. The second part, one of my companies I own a third of, the other third is owned by Fonterra, and the other third is owned by investors. So keep it cut and simple like that, I think, yes.
Okay. Councillor Keens. Redmond, sorry, then Keens. Yeah.
No, I've been.
Oh, sorry, pardon me, Keens.
Thank you, Logan, for coming and giving a brief presentation. I too looked at your website. So in terms of the shear edge, are you proposing to manufacture the wool pallets on site in Kaiapoi, or the actual finished products as well, or both?
Coming up as a business person, the biggest challenge for me was finding people to actually test and trial any sort of invention I had. I'm responding to a question, Sherry, to have an R&D plant there where we'll be testing new ideas. This will not be a full industrial plant. This will be a lightweight commercial plant where you can do rapid trials for new products. For instance, we're making new fabric products that we'll be trialing there. The full commercial scale, heavy industrial will be staying in South Auckland.
And are you going to teach these students to be disruptors?
Yes, I'm going. Project working, right? Not good.
Well, good luck.
Okay. Thanks, Logan. Just an extension to that, retail, is any of the products to be retailed in the future from there, or is it just purely your R&D?
I'm a bit allergic to retail, but I do like the idea of canvassing customers and seeing whether they enjoy products. And I think there'll be a huge value in a tourist element. In Night Island, I briefly discussed having tourist buses actually coming and looking at innovative New Zealand products that are being made and then trialling some of our products. I thought that would be quite a cool component, but just pure retail for retail's sake. I've been burned a few times during COVID, so not a huge fan.
Thank you.
Well, Logan, can we say firstly, thank you for your enthusiasm. And at your age, my goodness, it's impressive credentials you've already got to. It's an exciting opportunity. So look forward to our staff furthering that with you. And I think, as has been indicated by the Deputy Mayor, the property portfolio working group would be the right vehicle for our staff to bring that through. Noting we've had a lot of interest and over the years, and then a lot haven't come to fruition. So understanding that you're ready to go is something really good for us to hear. But the staff will further that with you, and may well be through the presentation to the work group in due course. But appreciate your time and making yourself available, and we look forward to that being further. I understand you've been working with Vanessa and the team here, so it's really good. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. The team have been great, so
they are great, and you're absolutely right. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you. All right. Back on track. Was emailed out to you all yesterday, so here we go. All right, so item 8 now, which is district licensing committee membership options. It's referred by the DPNR committee. So thank you. Any conflicts for members that wish to appear? DLC members, current district licensing committee members. Yes, Billy.
I'll take the report as well, just for some clarification, and this journey's been a bit of a mission. An original report went to the DPNR meeting in July, and after that particular report, a workshop was put in place, and to discuss what the council's direction would like to be. Further report was then written to clarify those discussions and align thinking with that. And that ended up with me recommending an option C to add up to 3 additional members of the district licensing committee from 5 up to 8 through a combination of councillors on community board and non-community board members. And that was put in place is to align and removed members of the public. So that's where we got to with that report. So when it went to the DP in our meeting, just bear with me till I get to it.
The DPNR, that's the recommendation here by up to 2 members, is that correct?
Yes, correct. So the DPNR committee discussed the options between 5 and came up with a number of 2 extra members, and so to expand to 7 in total. And just to sort of clarify that too, that doesn't have to happen in one fell swoop. It can't happen all the time. Maybe it's preferred to do it in one iteration from a training perspective and a succession planning process. However, that's up to council to decide. The number would be 7 from that recommendation. Also part of that process is to approve and update the district licence delegations, excuse me, to allow all commissioners on the district licence committee list to form a DLC if required, if for any reason the chair or the deputy chair were not available and there was a matter of urgency. This is to reduce risk to council that a DLC couldn't be formed. But we must emphasise that that would only happen if either the chair and deputy chair were not available and it was in a matter of an emergency for a hearing. That can happen for a special licence. Sometimes that can happen for the likes of a funeral close to Christmas. And if we didn't have the chair or the deputy chair, it would be quite difficult to have a hearing if required, if there was opposition to any licence application.
So chances of the chair and deputy not being available though, what's the chance of that?
Well, minimal, I would say, very minimal, but it is a risk that could happen.
In terms of we had a discussion in the committee around, I was asking around the library that's been requested, textbooks and other resources. How are we getting on with that?
Yes, we're having a training session and we'll be discussing that, the exact needs and wants in that respect, and then move through that process from there.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Fulton.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just wondered if, in fact, for today's meeting, you might have explained this and I didn't understand. I thought that earlier we said that it would be up to 7 members. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Up to 7. Is that reflected in the recommendation?
Yeah, it is.
It is today, so we are. Okay, so that's, yeah, that's going to be there.
Okay, any other questions? I'm going to move from the chair the recommendations and lead to second. Second, Councillor Cairns. There's been quite a lot of discussion around this already. We've workshopped, we've had a discussion last webinar. So it's effectively just endorsing what's already been discussed. I do mention that I do want to see that personally that those resources are available, so it's good to hear. Billy, because I know a number of the members have certainly expressed that they'd like to make sure that there's adequate resource for them, to make sure that they're keeping abreast of decision making. I can understand that. So having a library, whether it's within the councillor's area or wherever that is, that gives effect to that, and obviously some online probably resource as well, which you'll work through, I think will resolve perhaps some concerns by some of the members. Just want to stress that it says up to 2 members, so maybe determined not to extend to that, but it gives the ability of extending should it feel to be required. The other is it's with elected members from the council or community boards. I'm very clear on that. This is a really important function. It's responsible, and I think that should come from the elected membership of the council boards. The fact that there's appointments for up to 5 years, some may transition from for whatever reason, might retire from council, although it gives that ability for them to, if they've been elected member, to perhaps stay in that role for that period of time. It doesn't change from where things are at now, so I'm relaxed with that direction. Seconder. Any further speakers? Councillor Blake.
You recall that I spoke against this at the EPR meeting and voted against it because it was an interesting debate. There were three main things came up. Firstly, existing members and the committee members were sort of agreement that the thing wasn't broken. It doesn't actually need to be fixed particularly. The second thing was the comment was made that the more people you've got on, the less chances they've actually got of actually ever getting to a hearing because of the oversupply is the wrong word, but I think it was agreed that was the case. If you've got too many people, they can do the training, and there's a lot of training, and then they may not get to participate. And the third thing was the cost, additional cost. And although Billy explained there's money in the budget for it, it's still money. It's still additional cost. So we debated those three factors, and then the committee decided to go ahead with expanding it. So quite an interesting time. The only good thing I can see of it is the succession factor, which probably ties into having some more people there. But I probably won't vote against it, but I'm pretty lukewarm.
Councillor Fulton.
Yes, she's been involved in discussions on this side. I think that we've probably struck a reasonable balance here. It is providing for up to a certain number, and based on current need, it would need it today, then perhaps it is a bit surplus. We also have to provide for contingencies in a case of accident, illness, retirement, whatever. And we also need to bring on people to this role. It is, for all I'm told, it's a very important role, and it has its complexities at times. So you have to require training, satisfy there'll be a training budget in place, bring on newbies, and keep the current people up to speed. So I think this sits about right with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, just a question of clarification. Is there a timeline that you are proposing to expand the committee?
From my point of view, straight away, and that'll be something that after the next report I have in front of council, then we would discuss how with governance how we put that to council with a new report. Because if it's going to be councillors and community board members, we want direction on how you would want us to approach that.
So I note that in your report it says it's too early to measure any impact on resourcing and staff. And staff will continually assess the situation. And just given the feedback that some of the sitting committee have never yet been to a hearing yet, and we don't really know what the impact is of that. And I'm just wondering if it's something that we need to action at this point, or if we can just have it sitting there for when we actually do see the impact and have a better understanding of what might be required. Because the way I read this, we're not saying that we must have that many, we're saying we could have up to that many, provided there's a need for it. So.
Would you like me to reply on that? It takes a wee bit of time for any member to get up to speed with what's needed and required, because it is quite complex. And so 2 new members starting now would probably, even if there was an extensive hearing number, wouldn't probably be on a hearing straight away anyway, because of the training required to understand confidence and competence and the requirements to do the job. It's my professional opinion is that we need to put people on straight away so they can start doing that training. And I suppose to add to that, we have had 1 member step down, so we've only got 4 members at this moment in time.
Thank you. Any further, councillor Keys?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Billy, for the report that was spoken at length about really over the times. I had the fortunate opportunity to actually sit in one of the hearings recently, some time ago, but I certainly could understand that there are extremely experienced people that are currently within this committee. And as I saw it, by seconding this motion was to effectively have a succession taken place. And you know, these guys, you know, because of the legislative changes, they're going to have to learn a lot about questioning, they'll have to learn a lot about natural justice, all these other elements. And as I said, by appointing these two new people to the committee would allow them time to actually learn from a very, very experienced committee. And I encourage our councillors to support this.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Nothing to respond to there. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, declare that carried.
I'll abstain, thank you.
Abstention from, do you want that recorded? Yes. Abstention from councillor Blackie, declare that carried. We need to tell the team know that they can come back in. You're all redundant, so don't worry.
Very good. This made a difference, mate.
We're going for competent, capable guys.
Right. Now, item 9.1, health, safety and wellbeing report, Mr. Millwood.
I'll just take the report as being read as an instances in the last month. I will show them the attachments.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Goldsworthy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question on the lockdowns. How often are we practicing lockdown procedures as a whole from the council?
Not enough. So we need to increase the frequency around that to at least twice a year. So one to 2 years on the year. And then just reviewing that, as you can see whether they're appropriate or not.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It actually follows on beautifully from Councillor Goldsworthy. Building evacuations, do we actually do those on a regular basis, and are we as elected members ever involved in those trial events?
Generally don't have them on the meeting on, so it comes on elected members, but yeah, they're regularly held at least once a quarter. Well, it feels like once a quarter.
Once every 6 months.
And they're usually at the most inappropriate time. And they don't need that meeting. So, yeah, I'll give that feedback that we should have one from the council.
I didn't say that.
No, I think it'd be worthwhile. Yeah. Spice up the meeting. Yeah. Around afternoon tea time.
On a fine day.
It's not too good at then.
Any other questions? There's a recommendation. Here's someone need to move. Councillor Goldsworthy, second to Councillor King. Do you wish to speak?
Thank you for the detail.
Councillor King.
Thank you, Doug.
Any other speakers? I've got the recommendation. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Next is the item 10.1. Is Sophie here for that? Just for it to be received, so. Moved. Moved to Councillor Bryan.
Oh, can I, sorry, question, I didn't realise Sophie was. Just a question, doesn't need to be answered now, but for Sophie really is, does deepening the water in any of these ponds, does that make a difference? I mean, the fact that the birds can't actually reach the bottom and get the botulism off the bottom, you still get stuff that's floating on the water. But if the ponds were deeper than the 400, does it make a difference to the life of birds if they can't get down there? I'd just like to know the answer to that question of Sophie. When Sophie gets a chance, you can just email her. That's fine.
Any other questions? Do you have a question, Councillor?
Yeah, I'm just concerned, the this report's all about kaiapoi and the botulism. Do we know, have we had any birds in the Rangiora ponds botulism? This report didn't actually go over that or not.
Yeah, I don't think we've had any concerns there, but I'll make sure that's.
Normally we do.
Yeah, I'll make sure it's in the, if there's any concern over it, we'll get that one.
Okay, any other questions? So this recommendation which Councillor Bryan is moving, seconded by Councillor Blakey. Who wish to speak? Councillor Blakey. The other speakers? I'll put the recommendation. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. We have minutes from the item 11, 11.1, 11.2, Deputy Mayor's moving, Councillor Ward is seconding. Do you wish to speak to that? I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Series of community board minutes. 12.9 to 12.3, Councillor Cairns is moving, Councillor Blakey seconded. Do you wish to?
Thank you.
Councillor Blakey. Any further speakers? I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. This is my diary. Do you wish to move? Deputy Mayor, do you want to second that, Councillor Means? Firstly, I should have asked any questions. Councillor Councillor Cairns.
Yes, it overview.
Yeah, eventually.
Are you able to share in terms of the Harry Harker estate, any updates with regards to that, or is that still?
We can share that the estate funds have been transferred to the council, so they're now sitting aside in a dedicated fund. The Deputy Mayor and myself and the Chair of the Kaiapoi Community Board met with the Harper family, along with Chris Brown, met with the Harper family on Harry's anniversary. We discussed possible plans for that. The family are very attracted to the idea of an upgrade to the bridge, Kaiapoi Bridge. That would be a very appropriate use of that resource. So staff are working through those options at the moment, and they will be presented in due course, including for the family. And around, there was some discussion around, well, you know, what might the replacement look like, potentially, just loosely discussions, but there's some further work to go on there, including how, if we were to put the steel, the lightened, how that artwork might be reflected, or the story of Kaiapoi might be reflected, how we might go about that, just very early preliminary stages. There will be, as part of that process, once further information is sought, there will be a briefing for both the council and board, and I'd suggest that we do that together at some point. Whether it's a sign of Christmas, we'll see. It's a bit of work still to be assessed there, including getting some updated estimates on that. Some of those figures were done quite some time ago. But really exciting opportunity. It's around the states, it's under 600,000 at this sort of level, so it's a substantial bequest to the council. So we want to make sure that the intentions that Harry was is honoured and that it's fitting. So having the family involved on that duty is really good. Do you want anything to do?
No, that's fine.
Any other questions? So we've got a mover and seconder for my diary. Wish to speak? No. Pop that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. Council portfolio updates. Around the relationships, I have nothing to update at this particular meeting, apart from we'll have a catch up with respective around Three Waters with around proposals that we're contemplating as part of the exercise. We are going to have a discussion with Ngāi and also Ngāi, which is in Kaikoura. So it's just part of the journey of part of the exercise of consultation and partnership where we're going to embark on that conversation. We're hoping the next month we'll keep you updated. Something probably Rachel? Thank you. Well, if you could just keep it to yourself, and as I mentioned earlier, if you need to, please depart the room. Just don't like this interruption continually occurring. Thank you. Councillor Blakey.
Question: is there any progress on discussion with the Runanga about the Ngātahi funding for Tuatara Coastal Park?
I don't have an update on that. Is there anything to update you, Chief, on that? Around TKTT?
I think some advice is going back to the meeting on Wednesday in regards to budget expenditure.
From Joseph?
To the trust from who? From finance. Yeah.
Okay, it's not on the agenda, but
financial accounts will be presented there, I think.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Greater Christchurch Partnership update. We had a partnership meeting a couple of weeks ago, and really it was just a series of updates, one on the housing. There was an interest of the partnership to, certainly staff were exploring whether the partnership should be exploring regional / city deals. There was an informal discussion of the mayors and the chair. We believe that, look, at this point it's clear from the government that Canterbury's not in the early phases of that. But if it is to be considered, we had a very good presentation from, came to a Mayoral Forum dinner with Ian Watson for Business Canterbury, that if we are to progress that, then really the right vehicle we think would be through the Canterbury Mayoral Forum in a broader, because if it's to be successful, if it is, it's to be able to region is what the government are looking for. And it doesn't mean that you couldn't have multiple deals within that one North Canterbury, for instance, but that narrative should be led by the Mayoral Forum. We think the partnership should be just keeping to its task of its present role and shouldn't be expanding there at this point. It's done very good work in terms of the spatial planning. There's the Mass River Transit work, and beyond that, in the housing, where it's in doing some work presently, but beyond that, don't feel it should be extending its remit. The savings, and there's significant resource that goes into the partnership when we look at a range of things. That's internal time for staff like to look at that resourcing, and that's certainly a question between councils, because it may well be that those savings can be reflected back here, where it's more efficient for those resources to be used elsewhere. And the Mayoral Forum is certainly, the Secretariat has a function there. Just like to make sure that the partnership function and Mayoral Forum are in concert and not duplicated. So that, just broadly, and it's moved to quarterly meetings as well now. Neville's been appointed to take a lead in the transport to earn my place in the hearings if that is required. So that'll possibly November-ish sometime. I don't know if they've set time till in October. Neville, Nikki, is there anything you want to add?
I just think there's a bit of frustration given that we were given indications that we had all of the pieces in place for a regional or city deal with the Greater Christchurch Partnership, and we've effectively been snubbed at this point, which is really disappointing given that we have everything that they've told us that we should have to effect one of these, and to be then told that there's only 5 regions that are being considered and we're not on it. It's kind of gutting. Just that's my personal observation. But you know, it's not over till it's over. So hopefully we can keep the those conversations live, but why is the Canterbury region in particular and the South Island in general continually snubbed?
I don't personally think we're being snubbed, it's just the government have made indications there. I think that we've got to do, if we get it over the line, is to work not only with Business Canterbury, Ngāi Tahu, there's a whole range of things to put together, and I think we just need to take our time, and we don't have to rush it. We don't have to be the first cab off the rank either. It's very clear from the government it will not be around resource, it will be around relaxation of a whole range of perhaps rules or processes, but they're not indicating resource at this point. So the fact that we're not necessarily in the first cab is not necessarily a bad thing. We were having a sort of a strategy chat about that the other day. So what we've decided to do at the Mayoral Forum, or indicate in the Mayoral Forum, is we're going to sore thumb it and indicate what might be the sort of things that we'd like to see for Canterbury. I'll bring that back here, that thinking for our endorsement in due course, but it's a start of that journey.
And I still think you're actually at the taxi stand again.
Yeah, no, we will, but it's about who's best to lead it as well, and I'm hoping, look, it's Leanne Watson from Business Canterbury. Everyone seems to be jumping on these regional deals. We've got to make sure it's coordinated and the right parties leading it. The Mayoral Forum and through all the Canterbury councils, I think we've got a really strong case, and we've just got to make sure we play our hand at the right time when we're ready to have that. And I think the thing we've got to make sure is that the partnership in Mayoral Forum and the Canterbury councils are coordinated. There's a bit of a view at times, partnership. You can see the other councils around the place, they roll their eyes, right? And so if we're to be successful, I think it's about using that broader relationship, but we'll see.
And whether it's Greater Christchurch or Canterbury and around makes no difference to me as long as we get some money down this way.
Yeah, indeed. Right, government reforms, apart from what's already been talked about on Three Waters, I think we're clear on that. A range of other changes. I mentioned earlier around the National Land Transport Plan, which pleased to see the bypass and obviously the indication of the design start for the Eastern Link. But there were a range of other things there, including the second bridge for Ashburton. There was some money up in Amberley or proposed for Carter's Road. Seemed to be a lot more for the South Island, perhaps there had been indicated at the start. It's not, and I haven't had a chance to study all that yet, but I was just having a look through the summary yesterday, and there's a Pages Road Bridge for Christchurch, which is important there. So it's a bit more in there than there was than we had indicated. So we'll see where that direction goes.
I think Dunedin aren't very happy that they haven't got a little.
What's that, sorry?
Dunedin aren't very happy that I heard them on the radio talking about, they just feel like that they need
So the Minister and the Government will be up to them to address that in due course. All right. Canterbury Water, any questions there? Canterbury Water Management Strategy, Councillor Fulton.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Members will be aware, we met yesterday evening as a zone committee, a large and lively public turnout in this room and the next. And it was, we began with three opportunities for the public to speak, as we described them in zone committee meeting, sort of deputation, if you like. So we covered private well test results. This is from James Edsel and the Mandeville Residents group. And he just canvassed a sample of what some of those results were, and there was sort of show and tell on board. Some of us came forward and pointed to local landmarks and areas where these particular higher readings were recorded. So I think that's a valuable initiative from the zone not from James and his group, with the support of the zone committee facilitating that. And of course the council does continue to very closely monitor its public well supplies and provide information where it's able on private well testing and best practice for monitoring nitrate and other potential leakages in the supply. So we also had a presentation or a dissertation from a Rangiora resident, so I don't have the name at hand, apologies for the lady there, but that was on chlorine and water supplies. I have to say it was unfortunate for the meeting that really it was probably the wrong issue for the wrong committee. And it was just, we had no means some committees consider chlorine and what the council does. And so, but we did hear that presentations and pretty strong and I believe at times grossly inaccurate statements were made, but there was a response from Stuart Cleary and the council here, and Mayor Dan was present as well. I think it's important in these meetings that everyone potentially just gives each other a hear and calls each other some due respect, and some of the behaviour was just a little bit fringe, I thought. That's just my view. We had Michael Bate, he presented on avian botulism and bird deaths in the wastewater treatment ponds. And we know Michael's been an advocate for best practice for a long time in the waimakariri in terms of our water supplies, in terms of our protection of bird flora and fauna, whatnot. So yeah, Jared again answered some of his questions about how we deal with avian botulism in and around our facilities. As I said, very full meeting, but we had also a presentation from PCAN's Adrian Meredith. There's another community interest, that's salinity in the Kaiapoi River. Particularly this year, we've noted they're particularly high at the moment. I can circulate another time Adrian's findings, salinity in the Kaiapoi River. He's compared from 2021 to 2024. I think it's fair to say that perhaps 2024, the major factor is that we've had particularly low flows in the Waimakariri River. We've had very few of the regular sort of freshers that you'd expect down the river, whether it's climate-based drawing from the river. It's pretty clear to me, at least, that there was quite a strong correlation between salinity and the way that the river flows and functions. And so, yeah, he presented a sample of test results there. I think actually it would be really valuable for us as a zone committee and perhaps even council to see more of Adrian and his regular tests, so that we can work out the correlation between the way that the river is flowing, the salinity levels, the chemical weed treatment, the drainage works, all that sort of stuff. It was a really good conversation, so I'm pleased we had it, and I think, yeah, I'd like to hear more from Adrian at the times. That's probably enough for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. And just, I agree with you. It was the wrong place for the discussion around coronation, and it was clear that I don't know how they've ended up there, but it was the wrong place. And I agree. Jared did a good job, and I also put forward some of the balance there for council, because it was a bit unfortunate, some of the accusations that were being made. It's okay. Here it is, but we were able to clear that up. Just on water management, there are a forum that is being considered at the moment, and there was Mayor Murray, Mayor Craig, Mayor of Christchurch, and Nigel Bowen working with ECAN on just the revision of that. So I've asked Mayor Murray and to engage with us around things that are important to our district and that consideration. So when that meeting comes about, I'll let you know so you can get involved in the discussion. Any questions of Tim? Okay. Thank you, Tim. Climate change, Nikki.
Yes.
Sorry, what was that?
climate change and sustainability.
Oh, sorry.
Less about climate change this month and more about sustainability. So it's been fairly quiet on the Western Front, with staff just working away on their work streams, but just a few things I'd like to mention. One of which, Mr. Mayor, you could probably speak to, the Canterbury Climate Partnership Plan, which we've all had in front of us a few times, has been approved by the Mayoral Forum on 30th of August, and you can speak to that if you would like. But yeah, you've all seen it. There's probably a bit of crossover between my colleagues Al and Robbie and the other things I'm going to mention, but they don't report to this committee, so I'm going to talk about it. This week, as you probably began reading this meeting today, is Conservation Week. And our green space team are hosting an event at Hegan Reserve on Gentles Road in Rangiora to celebrate on the 8th of September between 10 and 12:30, and they're going to have native tree planting and information about pest trapping and give people an opportunity to explore the creatures living in the water and determine the health of the waterway, and just, you know, amongst other things to do on the day. So it should be a nice fun family day out and educational for people, and you can plant some trees and do something good if you turn up. And then a nod to Robbie for this one. Then the 20th to the 27th is Keep New Zealand Beautiful Cleanup Week, and the Waimakariri Youth Council is coordinating their annual river cleanup along the banks of the estuary on the 21st of September. And whilst they've already got a lot of, a wide variety of groups already involved in that, there are more volunteers always welcome, but I would prefer people register just so that they can cater for the right number of participants and keep an eye on the health and safety issues, you know, left behind and all that, especially if we're working along the river. And any individuals or groups that want to register their own cleanup events can go to the Keep New Zealand Beautiful website, and then if they register their event there and email proof of that registration to our solid waste team, then and let them know how their cleanup will be, then the team can work with them and come up with the best disposal option for them. So generally when people run cleanup events on cleanup week, as they're out there doing good things for the community, they don't charge those people who are running those cleanup events picking up garbage that other people have left behind. So they give them that free of charge, which I think is only fair, and I wish people would stop dumping things in places that they shouldn't. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, that's coming up at the end of the month. And finally, I don't know if you're all aware, but there are 4 Canterbury biosecurity advisory groups in Canterbury, and our council is a member of the Northern Biosecurity Advisory Group, which includes us, Wiradjuri, and Kakota district councils. And anyway, at the end of the month, they're having a combined meeting of all 4 of them, so that'll go all the way down to the southern end of Canterbury, right from the next peninsula up to Kakota, and we're gonna have a big chat about a lot of things, and I'll report back to you guys on that later after it's happening. If there's anything exciting to tell you about, so that's it. This week for me. Well, maybe not short, but hopefully sweet.
Thanks, Nick. Just as you indicated, the Mayoral Forum signed off the Climate Partnership Plan on Friday. We're not going to launch that until December. Just timing wise, so to ensure that the Minister of Climate Change is able to make it, which has been confirmed. As part of that, I'm very keen to see that there's a celebration of what is going on in our particular areas, and some of the really good work, and particularly Vicky Buck's doing some excellent work in Christchurch, obviously from the rural and business. So in putting that event together, I'm keen to make sure that that is a launch that really reflects what's going on in Canterbury. So it's a really big step there, and so I'm really keen to see that well. But it's been a big piece of work over a number of years, and to get to this point is a substantial step, particularly where you have all Canterbury councils in agreement on the plan, which in itself is a big step. Right, any questions for Nick?
Just wondered, one that's loosely related, but I know it was Te Aratia with the CAM. We had some questions at Zone Committee yesterday about the works on the CAM, for as far as the council was concerned. We had a presentation from John Cook a few months ago. He specifically asked for a council report on something along what we're doing along the CAM, stop backwards, planting, all that sort of stuff. So I just thought it might be related, you might have seen some report.
There's nothing to report on about Aotearoa at the moment.
No.
But I can.
If you could inquire, or someone can be doing anything separate, yeah. I was told there's being a report or something.
But I know that Kent is actually doing some stop bank works in there, so they put a halt on anything until they sort out anything in that being done in that area, to my knowledge, until that gets sorted, because obviously it doesn't make any sense to be planting if it's going to be then crunched and munched for stop bank works. So because there's just repairs and whatnot, raising levels and that they've got ECAN has a program of works in front of them to do. So I'm not sure where that's at, because I can't. So
we get that put to Sienna. Is that the right place? That one, or you want to?
yeah, I think it would be CNR.
Green space, all the answers to all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. No other questions? Thanks, Nikki. International relationships.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had our meeting last week with all the, just to wrap up really, of the visit from the consulate, and of course the Passchendaele trip, which was coming up, which Dan's got under control there. And there is really a lot to report. Thank you, letters, and adding a couple of pages to the booklet which we have for international relations. Sorry, for the Passchendaele group. They'll take them over to Passchendaele with them and distribute them over there. So that's really about that.
Just to be clear that the Passchendaele trip
self-funded.
Self-funded.
Yes, I know the
for the
rumours are
record.
out there already.
I know there's speculation about that, but it's completely self-funded.
All false
Just
information.
for the record. Right, so no more misinformation about it will be helpful. All right.
Our property portfolio tomorrow. I have noted, I've actually just been looking through here, or been giving her a report. I'm not sure, is everybody still receiving the minutes after the of the property portfolio vote? Because you should be. I've probably asked three times if we distributed to everyone after the meeting, and it hasn't been done that I can see.
Yeah, definitely yes. I would see. I'll check to see.
Yeah, but you're on the group, that's why you
I'll
received.
check to see if you're on.
Okay. We'll make sure that gets done, and tomorrow, there's the meeting's tomorrow, so there'll be more information around that one.
Any questions for me? All right. Okay. Thank you. So I've got no questions on standing orders. There's no institutional business on standing orders. We now move for matters to be considered with the public excluded. Would you move from? You want to move? Councillor seconded Deputy Mayor. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. We might just have a 5-10 minute adjournment while the chambers are set up and toilet stops if we're back here about 4:30.